Hello, everybody. Welcome to DrawClass. How are my DrawClass patron tier viewers doing today? Switch over here to this. I'm seeing we got Xandrew Bird, we got Bloodbender, Nobody Nemo, Reiko. Hi, everyone. Welcome in. And also welcome to this is the final DrawClass where we're going to be quite this cozy in the chat. Because starting next month, we'll have the $25 tier patrons in here as well, which I think will be a lot of fun. But this will be nice too. Nice to have one more just us. Reiko, you're doing fine. Practice today already a bit. Ready for some more? Hell yeah. That makes one of us who's practiced today. So I'll be warming up and teaching at the same time. I think we'll all be kind of teaching each other because a lot of the stuff y'all sent in, since for this class I'm looking at your references you've sent, a lot of it is stuff I've not really worked on before too much. So I think it's going to be really fun to get into some of this stuff and see what we can do. Nobody Nemo, you're great. Just got done making a lasagna. Hell yeah. Just got done making a lasagna is like the best stage of making a lasagna. You're at the best part now. You've done all the hard stuff. And we are entering a new era, Xandrew Bird. It's true. Hopefully a golden era. That'd be great if it was a golden era. And not like the dookie poo-poo flop era. That's the era we don't want to enter. I feel like y'all should know as well that I'm making great sacrifices to be here today because my mom is in town visiting, and she and Julia and Felix all went to get ice cream. And I'm here. I'm here doing DrawClass while they're out getting ice cream. It's truly a disaster and a travesty. But you know what? I'm still happy to be here, and I'm ready to do some drawing. Why don't we just get it going? I'm ready. Let's look to the Discord here. Because Nobody Nemo, yours is up first. You've got some reference here of a fish called an alligator gar. Let's get this first image in here. Look at these fellas. My God. Let's see what you said. I've been trying to design a creature around these. The images are screenshots from the show River Monsters. Thank you as always for these streams. They're always incredibly helpful. You're welcome. Excited to figure out this fish. So for stuff like this, when it's like any type of creature, I usually like to do like a shape breakdown first and be like, what's the important shapes that make this identifiable as what it is, so that if I'm drawing like based on this, people will see it and recognize it as an alligator gar or based around an alligator gar. So I think first thing we'll do is I just want to do some like redlining of the fish, and let's see what makes up this nasty son of a gun. So I'd say most notably, should we do marker? Should we go marker mode? Nah, let's go juju mode. Most notably, big tube. Fish's big tube. It's almost like a baguette shape. If we're taking like this main body shape. It's like a beautiful long baguette. And then I think the primary features, long snout, which is sort of like this stretched out quadrangle sort of thing. What's it called when the shape is like this? Is this a trapezoid? This is a parallelogram. This is a trapezoid. I want to say that's true. Kind of got like sideways trapezoid vibes. And then I'm seeing these three big fins back here. this one little fin here. Whenever you're doing stuff like this, you really want to pay close attention to anything that breaks the silhouette that comes out of the main shape. Hello, Bloom Crane. Welcome in. Welcome in. We're just looking at what makes a fish tick. Not a fish stick, but a fish tick. Little bit of dad humor for you. But yeah, I like to focus on the main shape and then nailing the placement of anything that sticks out of the main shape. They're like a river Jacob horse. That's incredibly true, actually. So the next thing that I'm paying attention to is placement of facial features, because I think that's very important for making something identifiable. Something interesting about this fish is that the eyeball is like, on these ones down here, it's like in the middle of the head, like the very middle, which I think is very identifiable placement. Putting it just like right in the center really like accentuates that. And then the fact that the mouth is like this little smiley thing that doesn't fully go the length of like the head shape, I think is really funny also. So I think the main takeaways here are, don't forget the pectoral fins. Yeah, we got pectoral fins as well, of course. And there's some gills. But if you were like designing a creature around this, it's like even absent those things, I think all these features that are silhouette breaking and facial features are going to be the most important things to get right. If, like me, you like to get at least one thing wrong every time. So now knowing this, having looked at this, I would love to see, this is a good guy. Now that I have this, whoops, I gotta make it so that the aspect ratio stays the same. There we go. Now that I have my simplified version, I'd love to try and draw like another one using these like things that I've learned. And see, it's good to do this because in my mind, I really want it to have something up here, but it doesn't. It doesn't have something up there. And so there's simply no way to do that. So I'm going to do just like a little sort of creative interpretation here of one sort of coming more towards us in space. Just using these simplified features that we've learned here. So what have we learned? We've learned that there's 3 big fins at the back. There's one in the middle. There's one at the top going this way. There's one at the bottom going this way. There's this thing, this fin in like the middle part. That's going like this. And we can add like some of these things to it, of course, as well, if we so desire. Then we got now see, this is where you got to start doing some shape rotation in your mind. So if you haven't been practicing your shape rotation, always a good thing to practice. So if we had on this fish, I said it was like a trapezoid going this way. Now we got to imagine a 3-dimensional trapezoid. So if this is like the base of the trapezoid here, then we're going to have a much smaller, it's almost more of like a pyramid. Something like this is what we're going to want. And then because it's me, I would probably also like to simplify that and smooth out the edges. Clean up some space for drawing this water dog. Then the mouth is going to be seen a little bit from the front because it's facing towards us now. And it's got this weird little smile that I love. It looks like it's having a great time, which I think is very funny. And then we have to consider now that we've rotated this cylinder as well. So this cylinder shape here, is now facing towards us. So if we're drawing the circular eyeball that's in the middle of the head, that would now be more ovular because that's how angles work. I don't. What do you want me to say? That's how angles work. It's just how it is. This would, of course, be a very Jacobian interpretation of this fish. And then we got, can't forget the pectoral fin, of course, but we got to get the gills in there. And then this one more fin here coming out. Oh, it's cute. It's cute. Something about me that I've talked about before plenty of times in these classes is that the only way I can have fun practicing is if I sort of interpret things differently from the actual reference. If I like use the reference to make my own interpretation, I can have a really good time. If I try to copy the reference exactly, I have a really bad time. Drawing like this is very enjoyable and it makes me want to practice more. And so I encourage you, if you're doing practice like this, to find ways to twist things into your wheelhouse so that you feel like you're actually making some artistic choices instead of just rotely copying what you see. Just whatever way makes it more fun to do, and then you're going to do it more, which is better. Even if it's like, you know, oh, I'm only getting 80% of the benefit instead of 100% if I like copied it piece for piece. I'd rather be getting 80% of the benefit like on a regular cadence than 100% of the benefit one time, and then I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's take a look at some more fish pics, because we got some other ones here. This one, this front view here is actually going to be helpful because now we can take in some new information. Oh my God, that's a big picture. Because I sort of did my interpretation of it going at this angle, but if we look at the actual one, it's like kind of a little different the way it looks. At least this one is. So I think what we'll do, we're going to shrink my fish to up here to see how I did it. And then let's learn something from looking at this one here. I hope you're all drawing fish at home as well. Don't be shy. It's like if a platypus was a fish. It really is. It's got like dog face. Like this is dog nose. I can't point at it because my layer is underneath it, but that's a dog's nose. And the eyes kind of look like dog's eyes too when a dog's going like wall-eyed. Okay, so this shape is kind of interesting looking at it from this way because it kind of seems like we got the cylindrical front, but then as it recedes in space, it becomes more flat towards the back. So this is going to be more like this sort of shape in the back. Sort of like one of them seashells. Then I'm seeing the back fin back there. This one appears to not have the little bottom fin back there, or maybe it's just not visible. Then we get kind of a different angle on this fin, which is helpful to know how it do things. Yeah, and then we got this, I see why they call it an alligator gar, because the head done look like an alligator, don't it, folks? So this shape is really cool. This like doggy snout. I can't get over it. So I'm just trying right now to sort of suss out this interesting shape. This snoutly presence. And one thing I'm always looking for when I'm doing this is things relationships to each other. So I'm like, where does the, let me just put this on top. Like, where does the eye fall compared to like the tip of the nose? And then I'm like kind of going and I'm like, it's about right here. This is where that eye lump falls. And then there's some more head this way. Very, very sort of freaky looking bulbous eyes. Subulbous eyes. It's kind of got, when I draw it like this, it's kind of got a cute, like, ooh, me sort of look to it. Okay, we got to get this snouteroonie in here. Because I feel like this is a very important feature. Why do they have like a big dog nose with dog nostrils? Does that seem right to you? And it's sort of got a protrusion around the eye here, which gives it an even more like mammalian sort of vibe. This is also where if you're drawing your own piece, you're going to have to decide what level of detail you want to commit to. Because obviously a real fish has a lot of details on it, infinite details, sort of like fractally going downwards. The closer you get to it, the more details you can perceive, like on into infinity. And I think it's like your job as the artist to be like, what's important to me here to get across what I'm trying to get across, and then like figure out where you're going to draw the line. Because like I'm not drawing fish scales. I just won't do it. It's too much for me. But you might be the type of person where you're like, I would love to draw some fish scales. I love doing sort of like repetitive tasks that I can zone out into. And I think that's sick. I'm just not that type of person. There's like no way I'd be able to do it. So I like to keep things simple. I like to highlight certain areas that I think are neat. Like I think it's probably worth highlighting that the head has like a pretty distinct separation from the body. So I think I'm going to keep that aspect. Mine is, it's honestly cracking me up how much it looks like a dog who ate some of your bologna and doesn't want you to know. Then I'm noticing this kind of bulges a bit up more, so I'm going to try to get a little more of that action in here. Hit it with the bulge. And then these fins back here go more downwards. Like this. And then we got to get these front fins. Because these puppies are important. These are the fins that are giving it the old razzle dazzle. Like it's holding out its hands like, why? What do you want from me? And I'd probably just indicate it like this. For simplicity's sake. My hope, though, in doing this, because I know that your art is going to be different than my art, obviously, because we're different people. My hope is that you see the like underlying sort of mechanism that I'm going for here, like what to look out for and what to focus on to like save yourself time and energy and like get a result that you're looking for. Like you want to say like what's important to me and then focus on those parts. It says, is it a crime to enjoy a succulent Chinese meal? That is the vibe. And I don't think it's a crime, frankly. If this fella asked me, I would say no, enjoy away. Have whatever meal you please. Okay. So hey, I don't know about y'all, but I think that's fish. I love this fucking guy. I'm gonna look back at him later and say, that's my guy right there. Hope that was helpful to how to break down an alligator gar. I know you got a lot more reference pieces here, but I should move forwards because we actually have a lot of references people sent in. And up next, we got the one from Messy Zandrubert. Nobody Nemo said a big part of the alligator gar's head is that the scales are interlocked with stretchy skin that allows its head and throat to expand. That's really cool. And it's also one of those things where, like, because you know more about it, you can like apply that knowledge to the work that you do with it. Like knowing how it mechanically functions. It kind of reminds me of how they do like Monster Hunter monsters, where like they clearly study real animals and how they act and like what their biology is, so they know how to apply that to the monster design. And that's something you would be able to do in this case that I would not be able to because I don't know anything about it. But if I'm just looking at reference, then these are the things that I personally would pick. Let's look at the Zandrubert stuff here. Zandrubert said, for the guided practice, I've been studying this music video that Doigswift worked on, which is insanely sick, by the way. That's my own editorializing there. I really like the composition of both of these screenshots. Could we study either the lighting of the boots screenshot or the explosion of the wide shot? Yeah, we can take a look at both of these things. And they're both really cool looking. So here is the boots in question. The boots not with the fur. Really cool composition, of course. We got like the sort of Dutch angle thing going on. And let's take a look at this boot rendering, why don't we? These are really cool to look at for rendering because it's multiple types of material, which is really fun to work with. You got like whatever the pants is made of and then the shiny tips of the boots. And so you want to express those differently so people can tell they're different. But I think what they do so well in this shot is doing it in a very simple and elegant way where the rendering process is actually not so different from one to the other. So we're going to draw our own boot over here. Let's do it in black so we can maybe render it easier. So we got like this ankle down into the boot. I need more space. And the boot goes like this. And there's a spur on it. It is the boots with the spurs, if not the boots with the fur. So we'll indicate the spur here. And then we got these metal toes. And this is just going to be sort of a quick and dirty fella here so we can get to the actual part, which is the rendering of the boots. Shrink this a little bit. Apply the transformation. Yes, please. Yes, please. I would love that. And you know what? We'll go up a little higher so we can get some of this cloak back here too, because I think that's really cool the way that's done. Hey! And there's another piece of metal up here as well, so we can actually look at a couple different examples. And we'll just go all the way up on this. Scoot this up because I don't know what else is up there because I can't see it. Then I think for sake of ease of rendering, I'm going to do a quick inking pass on this, which I always like to zoom in for. This will just make it easier to fill in things. And let's see, this is like tattered and stuff, but that's not really important. So we'll just quickly make sure we're closing all the gaps here. It's also a good warm-up for me. Get that boot. These boots were made for something. And that's probably what they're going to do. And the spurs. Beautiful, wonderful. Okay, this should be a good base from which we can focus on the rendering of this bad boy. Bring that back a little bit. Okay, so not a perfect boot by any means, but that's not what we're here for. First things first, I like to just grab the flat colors because we're just going to do an actual study. We're going to try to reproduce kind of what they've done here. Helps if I do it this way. So that's the sort of base color of the boot. And then we got this base color of the cloak. I usually like to pick sort of the darkest or kind of the middest. It depends on the reference, but in this case it's the darkest and the middest because there's only 2 tones available to us. Probably go with this one for this, and as well for the spur. So what they've done here that's really cool is they've got a very basic sort of cell shading type of rendering going on, where in this case the figure is backlit by the door. So you have this brighter sort of pink as like rim lighting that's applied pretty much to everything. It's applied to the coat and the legs and the boots as well. So we will indicate some of this. Right quick. One of the most fun things about drawing is when you have to do it as fast as humanly possible. Bloomcrane said, do you usually indicate ambient occlusion only with line weight? It kind of depends. It kind of depends. I often do use line weight to indicate some sort of ambient occlusion, but I also use line weight like this is not a good example of inking on this. It was very quick and nasty. But line weight can be a good way to indicate ambient occlusion. In this case, they don't use line weight at all. It seems like it's all sort of a monoline type of inker. It's just one very thin line weight. And they're just using a single shadow type and a single light type. What's ambient occlusion? Ambient occlusion is like a spot where there would be naturally occurring shadows, sort of regardless of the lighting situation. So like an example could be usually like underneath the chin is almost always in shadow unless you're being lit like from below. Something like the armpit, like inside the armpit here, this is almost always in shadow regardless of the lighting scenario. Or like this little bit on my collar where you can see the dark right there, where the shirt overlaps with skin. That would be an area that could be considered ambiently occluded. So it's kind of like the natural places where shadows would be, even if you were in like a neutral lighting scenario, basically. Okay, getting back to this. I do love these like very simple and effective types of lighting setups where it's just good use of shape. Whoops. Good use of shape to indicate all these things. And good knowledge of like where light would fall. Top of the boot there. So they kind of establish here that in doing like lighting of what is fabric, it's just going to be this sort of two-tone situation. They're not doing any like gradient shading or anything like that. Not in this one at least. It's just sort of a cell shaded two-tone look. And then what's interesting about the way they do this is that the boots are pretty much the same. They've got the shadow zone, and then they've got this sort of rim-lit lighting zone that's hitting on the top here. And the only thing they do to indicate that it's metal is this extra highlight right here. They add one extra super hard highlight to the side of the boot just to say like this is a piece of metal. And oftentimes this is like enough, just doing something like this. Because our minds will read this and say like, oh, it's reflecting pieces of the environment. This is a different type of fabric. Let me not put it behind the webcam. How about that? Lasso tool is also super helpful for shapy shadows. Yes, very true. It is. And they do the same thing here on the spur. They've got the shadow and the highlight. They got the like light source coming in here that they put around the edges of this thing. And then they're like, well, this is metal, so let's add this same special reflective highlight layer. Because things that are metal will often have sharper and more pronounced highlights than fabric, because they are so reflective. So they're going to reflect the light source of the environment in a much more crisp way with no blending whatsoever. But I think it's really cool the way that they get that effect with like such a limited tool set of like just using this one extra layer, and it works like so well. It just kind of goes to show you it doesn't have to be like super complicated to get a very nice effect. Really good stuff. And obviously they've got like a big like sort of soft glow atop everything, a soft like pinky glow. But the basics of it are just like pure lighting fundamentals. Let's take a look at the other piece as well. I'm excited about this one with the explosion. This is so sick. Also, just what a composition too. I find this composition really interesting because if we're looking at it from a perspective of like, you know, rule of thirds, if we were like splitting this into thirds, it'd be like, you know, vaguely like this. If I could get it into thirds correctly. It's something like this, but like what's interesting about this composition is that they've pushed the characters out into sort of the no man's land. Normally you'd want to put characters on like the lines like this. in a typical composition rule, but they've pushed the characters outwards to make room for this like huge explosion, so that like the explosion dominates the focal point of the shot. And also this like giant planet in the background. It makes the environment seem like the star of this scene, more so than the characters, who are kind of physically being pushed outwards to the sides, and even the ship is like way over here. Puts the focus way on like movement and action and explosion, which is really cool. But we're gonna look at this explosion because this explosion is super cool. And it's something I want to work on as well. And there's a lot to study here in terms of shape. Because what really sells an explosion is this like sense of movement of like the smoke and the fire. And this does such an excellent job of that. And it's something I've been working on a lot lately, actually. Let's get out our red line. Specifically like these sort of tendrils that shoot out like this. Like focusing on the directionality of these. And even these smaller ones, they all point in this direction. Everything is pointing in the direction that the explosion is moving in. If you take like the basic shapes here. Everything is saying, we started here and we're all going out. I think a lot of time what people do, and what I also have done mostly in my art career until I started studying this stuff, was you'd make an explosion and you'd just be like this. You'd just be like, boom. The issue is this doesn't look like it's doing anything or going anywhere. It looks like it's just sitting there. Now, if you take the same thing and you're like, boom, where everything is pointing in the direction that it's going. You know, even with this like childlike scribble, it looks like this is going somewhere and this is just sitting there. And so the idea of like focusing on the directionality of all of this stuff is really, really helpful. And then what's cool to get into is like the actual shapes of all these things. So let's look at this one tendril of explosion here. Every shape of it, in order to sell this direction of moving this way at a high velocity, every shape is lengthened in this way and then flattened in this way. So because it's moving really fast this way, it narrows out. And you apply that to all the shapes you're making. So if you look at like, this is like an oval. It's like a circle that's stretched out long way, flattened this way. Every shape in this is going to be like this if you sort of break them all down. You got like these triangles here. And so you want everything to be thin and narrow while still making these like organic shape choices, because smoke and fire is a very organic shape. But that's like the main thing to think about is like, if I were doing the same thing and I was like this, you know, it doesn't it doesn't look like it's doing the same thing than if I'm like this. This is like a super simplified example, but the principles are all applying here. So if you want to make explosions like this, it's all about that directionality of the things that you're showing. And I just want to like go over this a little bit, just because it's so nice. I just love looking at it. And the more you look at stuff like this and just trace it, the more you just kind of get the feeling of it beneath your fingers, you know? And then once you got these directions established, you can do this cool like offshoot stuff to make the silhouette more interesting. And because you've established such like a solid direction, it doesn't like interfere with the readability of what you're doing. Really cool. And this is also a time where I wish I had like Spencer here, because Spencer's like the explosions master. Because there's things I don't quite get how to do. Like explosion shading, I'm not quite certain of like the mechanics of it. I see that you make like these sort of circular shapes and then sort of shade these areas like in between them. There's like these big shape zones like this. And in the middle is sort of like the biggest shape. But as far as like how to decide where to put those, I'm not too certain on the choices that you make there, other than just like practicing a lot and figuring out where they should go. It's the same as shading clouds. Yeah, I guess it would be really similar to clouds, huh? Let's look at a cloud. Just take a look at a cloud. Clouds. What's a good cloud for this? Yeah, I don't know. I guess it just follows like sort of the body. Like if you just think of it as a bunch of circles. Let's take a look at a cloud. Because clouds are kind of like, in many ways, the opposite of an explosion. They're doing the just sitting there thing. They're not really exploding in any way. But they do still have these like major shapes you can find. It's like just a big, and they're flat on the bottom. Just like a big sack of, I don't want to say a sack of balls, but it kind of is a big sack of balls that occlude each other ambiently. So maybe if you establish like all of these, then it becomes like easier to say, this is where I would shade, you know, or something of that nature. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. But what a sick shot. It's so awesome. They do the same thing with these little ones too. Where it's like, you got like these elements here, which are not moving so much, and then you got these, which are really shooting outwards to show like what direction the explosion is occurring in. Same thing here. It's sort of like the three, and then you got these coming out. So I feel like there's a lot to practice with these shapes, with explosion shapes. This is the same thing too. Three. They got a style. We're discovering their style. Sort of kind of indicates that it blew up from something coming this way and then shot stuff out in this direction. Anyway, really cool stuff. Bloomcrane said, to me, it feels like the parts that expand faster are lit and the ones that expand slower are shaded. That's a good way to put it, I feel. Because like this would be, the parts that are lit would be the ones that are like more bulbous. So they've like expanded more quickly. That's a good point. That's a good way of looking at it. If you think of like each part as like its own expanding orb, then the area in between the orbs would be shaded. Makes sense. Let's take a look at the next set of references. Next up, we got Reiko, who said, for a while I've been winging the hair in my drawings. I try to prioritize the general shape of the hair, but I still don't know that well how to handle it sometimes when I sketch, and especially when I paint. I really have no idea how to make it not too noisy. So what about practicing some hair from sketch to a very simple 2 to 3 values / colors render? And they've got some examples here. Hair can be very complicated. That is for sure. Let's take a look at this first reference image you've sent here, because I think there's some cool stuff going on here with the hair. And we can sort of break down what's happening and the way that they're doing all this, because this is a very shapy approach, which I really like. There's also some reference you've sent, like this one, that is a much busier approach with a lot more lines involved, but I think the fundamentals of it are like still the same. So let's start with this one here. And first thing we'll do is we're just going to identify the shapes of the hair. So what I'm seeing is, and you said you like to focus on basic shapes first. I think that's really good. I usually like to focus on the place where the hair would be coming out of, and then the places around the head where I know it has to land. So like this is sort of where the part is implied right here on this character. So we're going to have some hair going out this way and some hair going out this way. So we know at least where everything is coming from. And then we know it's going to need to go down and frame the face. So let's focus on some shapes here. I'm seeing like this sort of bit right here is sort of a shape. This is like the top layer that falls over. And then this right here would be like the under layer that frames the face. And there's like different ways to break this stuff down also. You kind of just want to do whatever makes sense to your eye. And then you got this back layer back here. As well. And there's some of that under here too. So then next we have, and this is cool because of this like top flop layer. I'm seeing a layer that goes kind of like this. And then this top layer that goes over the top of that, which provides a very cool like contrast. So let's sketch this out a bit more detailed so we can do some rendering in a bit here, because the color choices here are really cool as well. So having like a general idea of where the hair is supposed to go and then just layering bits of it on top and underneath each other until you kind of get the result you want. And there's also this stuff where like, I think if I were drawing this and I was doing this top layer here, I'd probably would have started with this shape like this. And this is what I typically do, is I start with like one shape and then I add in flyaways from there. So like this flyaway I would have added separately. This flyaway I would have added separately. This flyaway I would have added later. So you can go like main shape first to make sure it's like where you want it to be, and then you add the details of these like flyaway hairs. Same up here. I would have had like the head shape, and then I would have been like, let's add some interest, some visual interest here on these parts. But it's better to start with it almost like a helmet on the head, and then to add these little bits where you want them to make like the area more interesting. So then we got this coming down here. It's more hair in the back, or that's the collar actually showing through. It's not even hair at all. Okay, sweet. And then we'll just kind of get the face shape in here and the ear. Great. Now let's take a look at sort of how they're doing the rendering here, because I do think it's quite interesting. They probably started with a base color, I imagine. That's what I would do. So let's try to just lasso in this base color. And this will save us some time. It'll take some time, and then it will save us some time. And we're just going to go through like each sort of color they used and try to think about why it is where it is and like what it's doing. Almost there. We're so done. All right, let's make a new layer here. All right, there's the base color for us. Now I'm going to make a new layer that I'm going to clip to that one so that we can sort of work on top of this. So for this set of hair, they're clearly doing a... Get my paintbrush out here. We got a heavy light source coming from the top left. We got a shadow, so the shadow is going to be over here, and there's sort of a mid-tone in the middle. So we're just working from like a clear light source, and then we got a little bit of like this bounce light situation as well from the environment, from like this environment over here. So it's easy to sort of break it down into like midtones, highlights, shadows, and so you end up with like 3 distinct layers. And then from there you want to add, I shouldn't say highlights, I should say like light, midtone, shadow, and then you add the highlights later to make it look more interesting. But that's how it ends up looking like, oh, this is so complicated by the end, is because they've been layering it up piece by piece. So let's take this tone here. We're going to get some of the shadows in. And I'm not going to bother. There's like complexity here in the way they did this. I'm just going to do it in a simple way for now. So we'll do it like this. Because this whole area is in shadow. And then we're going to go for the highlights here, because this whole area, kind of like this, is in highlight. And you can just sort of slop it in like this to begin with, so you can see what you're working with first. And then we can go in and make things a little more precise by following the shapes of these big chunks you've made. So for example, we can shape this out a bit more. And since we have this middle chunk here, we're going to want to make it look more like its own piece, like this. Get some of this up here, just following sort of the way the example looks. And you can just kind of slowly add stuff in and build it piece by piece, because they got some interesting stuff going on over here. Namely, they got these very dark parts that really showcase the underside of this big hair flop, which I think is quite cool. because this is like an area that would be in distinct shadow since it's in the highlighted part of the hair. It's being hit with direct light. It's the shadow underneath the direct light. So we'll get that in there. And we're just kind of painting it in for right now. And what I'm doing a lot of here is just putting in the color and then getting the other color and carving it out a little bit so it's not so stark. So this is already getting closer. Then they've got some little localized shadows here as well. So like anything that's underneath. They've done some really interesting work with these picking these shadow tones because there's so many different ones. Like this one over here is very different from this one right here, is very different from this one right here. Very cool to see where they chose to put lighter and darker shadows. And then like over here, we've got some of the environment kind of creeping in. It's like pushing the color more towards the yellow-green because the background's kind of greenish. And so there's like some of these bits coming in. And then like this is kind of a different color as well. There's lots of interesting color stuff going on. But again, it's like complexity that you don't need to get into, or you can do it slowly over time and build it up. So let's come to the other side of the head now, to where these shadows are, because we got some darker shadows down here that are in between this stuff, like further away from the light. And mostly what I'm trying to do is just copy what I'm seeing and try to think to myself, why did they make that choice in this place? So that then when I try to do this myself later, it's going to be easier to understand what they were going for. There's some subtle shadows here as well. Just sort of emphasizing the shape of this hair. But it's all just building slowly. Now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to carve back some of these little bits that I'm seeing here to add some of this texture so it looks like hair. I mean, a lot of the reason it looks like hair is because of these little textural touches that you can add with like quick brush strokes. Add the highlight to this strand as well. And then this is like pretty much the basics of what we're seeing here. And then I would come in once I've got the basics nailed down and I would be like, now let me add these like interesting highlight shapes on top of this. Probably even put them on a new layer. So there's like a cool this type of shape. And we'll come back in and like carve this out so that it matches better what we're looking at here. And it's got a couple little breaks in it to indicate the shadows of like individual hair strands without having to actually draw individual hair strands. Would love to make it a little brighter. Yeah. It's so easy to just get like lost in this sort of stuff. And you just want to keep going. Because it's cool to see what people choose to do. Let's see here. Yeah, we can even take the line art layer off and you can start to see how the shapes are working just on their own with no lines, which is always a good sign if it's looking good. Or we can put the line art to like overlay or something like that so it blends a bit better. And we got these little details here that just add some visual interest. And I love these like super bright flyaways that are just like scoop, even smaller, scoop. And there's one up here too, like a big one. That's even brighter though. Probably more like this color. Just adds a nice little point of interest there. I could literally just like sit here and do this all day. It's so cool to see how people work. Then you can go in and start focusing on really painting it. Get rid of the sketchy line art and start the painting process. Because there is some line art here, but it's pretty heavily colored. It's like part of the blends in with the piece itself. But yeah, it's always really cool to see how people approach these different things. My layers are a freaking disaster, though. I'll tell you that much for free. Because even now, my like way of doing it is a little bit different than this person would, because I just tend to be a much cleaner, focus on very clean lines. Also, it's okay if your layers are a disaster if you're just practicing. But look at that, it's like really coming together. Let's try to get this highlight on here. And then I think it's gonna be looking really good. And this is a very, very polygonal highlight, so I think we'll actually just go with the lasso tool for this. Yeah, that's looking sick. You can kind of just build it up one after the other until it's looking like how you want it to be looking. Shrink that down a little bit on the opacity. And it's like not a perfect reproduction of what we're trying to do, but I feel like I learned a lot from doing it. I learned a lot about this like process from just trying to replicate it. I think the most important thing though to think about whenever you're looking at anything like this is starting from very like as basic as you can, like the most base colors, the most basic shapes, and then building upward from there. It's not about like reproducing what you're seeing line by line. It's about like reproducing the fundamentals of the thing itself, like starting out with building blocks and one at a time putting them together until you have, a beautiful castle. The equivalent of a beautiful castle, I should say. But yeah, really fun to mess with. Eye of the Basilisk said, as a creature and character artist, this is true with critters too. Scales, feathers, and fur are rabbit holes you can get lost in. And the way people depict large amounts of scales without it getting busy is extremely fun to see. If you ever feel bad about your layers, remember me for a moment. If it's not for someone else, I'll get to 70 layers before I've named one. I mean, you can see my layers over here. None of them are named anything. And that's typically how I work, is I just keep making more. And sometimes there'll be layers that don't even do anything. I don't even know why they're there. Let's take a look maybe at one of these like busier hairs. Because busy hair is also something that I'm not super... I usually try to avoid anything that's busy. Let's get this one out and take a look. How many more references do I have, actually? I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I'm seeing the work y'all are doing in the chat. Oh, this is so sick. I'm seeing Reiko and Nobody Nemo's alligator gars. And Reiko, you did an excellent job on this hair shading. I feel like you killed it. I feel like you're getting it for sure. Oh, that rules. I'm glad you guys are drawing along. Let's take a look at this other hair here. We'll do a quick one on this, because I think the principles are pretty much the same. Is that we want to start by looking at basic shapes here. So like the head, let's not use that color. This is all like a basic shape that just sort of outlines the cranium. Then we got the part right here. So we know that we're going to have hair going up and over this way. And because it's pulled back, this hair is going to be going down and over this way. Eye of the Basilisk said, would you mind if I post my work when I've had some energy to do so? Yeah, of course. Doesn't have to be during the stream. Post whenever you have time to do it. Let me get the actual brush I like using. So then we got like this head shape here. Just gonna do the big circle with the thing. So then we know that we got, this is one shape to me, this big part right here going down. Kind of could just follow where the lines flow and see like where the natural stopping point is. And then this is a shape as well, the bangs. The bangs make a shape here in the front. Then we got the hairline here. So already we've got just some pretty simple shapes set up. You got the hair that kind of follows the line of the skull. You got the hair that goes around the side, and you got the bang chunk. So then what have they added? They got these ones over here in the back that are here for like this nice visual interest. And they sort of come down like this. And then of course you're adding these flyaways like as you go. And then we got the ponytail, which I would say this is sort of the main shape of it right here. And then the rest is, once again, stuff you add after the fact to make it more visually interesting. You got to add this stuff to make it look like hair. This is these sort of things right here, where it's like you got a chunk of hair and then you got these little ones that come up and like break the silhouette. That's like a trick I use all the time. I find that to be a very easy way to make hair look like hair. So then once we've got this basic stuff here, the rest of it, from what I can see, is very sketchy lines, light and sketchy lines that they're using that just follow the shape that the hair is trying to make. So like these all go and point towards the ponytail. And there's like a bunch of them and they're really sketchy. But the most important thing is that they're following the proper shape. And then that's how they're going to look right and not messy. So if all these lines you're making are following the shape of the major shape that you've made, then they're not going to look wrong. It's when you get kind of in the weeds with putting a bunch of lines all over the place that aren't highlighting the directionality of the hair. I think that's when it starts to look really messy. Because these lines are like super sketchy, super loose, super sketchy. The kind of thing that I typically would not do. But when combined with following the direction of the hair and also with the shading, it ends up working super well. It's really interesting. But yeah, mostly focus on identifying these big basic shapes first, and then adding the details outside of those basic shapes, and adding in layers until it's at a place that you like it. And looking at reference like this is a great way to learn how to do that. But break it down to simple stuff, and then go from there. Let's do Bloom Crane next. Bloom Crane got bugs. Silly bugs, make for great silly guys references. As soon as I saw these bugs, I was excited to draw them because I think they do make very good silly little guy reference. So let's take a look first at the giraffe weevil. There is about to be a bug on screen, so this is your bug warning before I paste this bug in. That's a good bug. That's a good bug right there. Bugs are fun because they really are just shapes, especially these ones. So let's do a bug breakdown. Because if I were to be simplifying this bug, what I'm seeing is this sort of almondy shaped body. And then we got one cone coming out of it, which goes into a ball. We got another, this is a cylinder type shape that goes into sort of a, I guess it's also a cylinder, but it's got a taper to it, which I would probably cut right there. And then we got this little snooter situation with kind of a ball on the end of that as well. And the antenna, of course, which are made of a bunch of little balls, but I don't know how I'll depict those as of yet. Then I'd probably separate this out and then focus on these very interesting little legs. Because they're cool how they go from like small to big and then small again and then to big again and then to small again and then to big again ad nauseum. Very fun shape. Very fun shapes to draw. And then we got the front arms here doing the same thing. So I think what I'll focus on here is how I would go about. And are these its eyes here? it's got eyes like the alligator gar. They're on like the middle of its head. Yes. I think I would go from here and try to simplify it even further for my own enjoyment and practice. And I would try to make it even more sort of character-y. So we're going to make the body even more circular. And I think we'll have the neck come out of here into this thing, which we can have going this way. And then as I've learned the head go like this, it's like a tube that get bigger. And then it's got this like snooter nose looking like a damn Ziggy, which I would probably make even more cute. Put the eyes on the side, just like I learned from the alligator gar. And then let's see, where's my reference image here? It's got these the little nose antenna things have a lot of little parts to them. So I would probably simplify those out a little bit. Maybe make them more wormy looking and then just segment them. Kind of looks like it's got worms coming out its nose, but hey, not my problem. Yeah, this is a good guy. So then I'm going to smooth out some of these transitional points. This neck joint thing is really interesting. I don't really know what to make of that. I'm just going to leave it as a ball. And then probably add a little bit more of an organic shape to this thing. To this part of the neck. And then it's of course got this big shell on its back. Beetly looking shell. And then the arms are coming down. And they go thick to thin. And then they segment, and then they go thin to thick. And then they go thin again. Bugs are funny. Like, why are they like this? Why are they doing this? What do they want? Probably just have this one coming down. Maybe we'll try to foreshorten this one quite a bit. So we'll have it being like this. Coming right at you. And then it's got other legs. Other legs doing things, doing bug things, which I'd probably simplify into something like that. Have one going out the back that's like receding in this direction. Look at this fella. And there would, of course, there'd be one over here as well. And then maybe what I'd try to do is make the shell part a little bigger. Emphasize that a bit more. Looking like an acorn bug. Oh, he's cute. He's cute and he's coming right at you. Weevils are all extremely funny looking. They wrestle with their necks and still manage to fly. That's very good. That's very good to know. I like that they do that, personally. Give this a little more space. Then I'm just going to waste everyone's time by coloring in this whole part. But once again, I feel like this also highlights my general philosophy on drawing things, which I will reiterate now, which is to use reference to make stuff that still is fun for you to do. Break it down into basic shapes, basic pieces, and then build it back up into something that you enjoy drawing. And it's going to make your practice so much more enjoyable. And also, once you kind of know how to break things down into their constituent parts, there's not really anything you can't draw or can't like adapt at least into your own style. And then you have fun. You draw something, you look at it, you're like, I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed making this into something that was my own. And you want to make drawing as sustainable as possible for yourself. You want it to be something you enjoy doing and something that doesn't stress you out and freak you out. Because there's no stakes whatsoever. It's all just about engaging in the process of creation and the process of interpretation. Let's see, it's 4:24. Let's get on to Eye of the Basilisk's references here. They said, I love the way you simplify and stylize. It's something I enjoy doing as well, but I would love to continue improving at it. My favorite subjects are animals and creatures, so I thought maybe as an exercise you could show how you find shorthands and make stylistic choices when drawing a creature to meet in the middle, lol. In case you want to find more references quickly, I have a secretary bird, a binturong or bear cat, and a coatimundi. Coati also brings up results. I actually saw coatis in Costa Rica when I was there in college. They're so adorable, even though they were also quite annoying. I chose a specifically hard reference for the binturong because I'm trying to figure out how I can do harder poses and still have them read as the guy, but still capture how silly they look at a head-on angle. Okay, sweet. Well, let's look at the binturong then, because this dude is looking PO'd. And I will look up another reference here, just so I can see it from another angle. Oh my God, they're really good. They are quite good. They're like a raccoon, sloth, bear. Look at this thing. And then I'll talk about the simplification process a bit here. So for me, when it comes to simplifying something while still retaining what makes it like unique, there are certain things you want to look at and make sure you hit in your simplified process. Namely, like the ratio of the bits have to be roughly the same as they are on the actual creature. You can exaggerate parts, and I'll show that as well. But what makes it look like it, and similarly, what makes a person look like themselves, is the ratio of their features to one another. So in this case, look at how pissed off you are. In this case, what I want to focus on is like the shape of the head, because I feel like that's really important to capturing the look of this thing. And so what we want to maintain here is, if this is the head shape, we'll draw a line down the middle here. The eyes cut through sort of, it's not halfway down, it's pretty low. There's like a huge forehead area. Ear and ear. So big forehead needs to be there. Grumpy eyes, sort of down the face. Nose here at the bottom. So this ratio is very important to this animal, of where these things go. And then we've also got this sort of wide triangular shape here around the sides. So we want to keep that. The other thing that I think is like paramount to the creature is this tail. The tail is very large, and it does a curly cue. So we want to keep that as well. Things I think we could exaggerate. The size of the body in relation to the head is already very funny. It's got like a tiny head and a big body. So if it were me, I would probably try to push that a little bit further. So let's just take a crack at it, huh? Let's try to get a face we're happy with first, because that's going to be the primary focal point here. So we're going to start off with sort of the shape that we've outlined up here. And then I think I want it to be, I'm going to turn it a little bit at like a 3/4 view. So what did we say? We said nose is on the bottom, eyes are more than halfway down, and grumpy. And then there's a big forehead. So we'll go nose here. We're going to put the eyes pretty far down. And the eyes are also pretty far apart as well. There's like maybe 2 eye lengths in between them. So we'll make sure we get that distance between the eyes. And these are the kind of things you want to sort of take note of when you're doing interpretations like this. Probably add some extra lines to really emphasize the grump. Then we want to keep this sort of big forehead area. And we got the ears that come up here as well. We got the little ears. It's good. It's a good creature. It's a blessed creature. They also seem to have the little eyebrow things that I love so much. Make some more space for those. They got this thing going on. And there's like sort of a cheekiness to the nose. Oh, I made it look like such a little brat. And then crucially, we need these shapes that come out here like this. And we'll make it look more fur adjacent here in a second. I just want to get the shapes in first. The shape is pretty important. Then we'll smooth out this line a bit. We'll keep that one solid. We'll make that one less solid. And then since these are fur, I'd probably do like a 3 fur sort of simplification here. 3 peaks to indicate the fur. Maybe do even, let's see, 3 peaks. 3 peaks. So I think this is a good start here. And then what I want to do is make the body just so big. So the next ratio that I want to look at is this one here. The back comes up so high. The head sits so low on the creature. Like here, the head is like between the legs. So I think this is an area where you could really exaggerate and you could get the back like way ass up there into sort of this type of shape. And then they're very broad. So what I'm seeing when I look at this is I'm seeing this shape and then I'm seeing this shape. So they're kind of like a loaf of bread sort of shape. Or like a mailbox. They're shaped like a mailbox. So I'm going to make my own sort of mailbox here as the beginning of my sketch. And then we'll have the legs, which I'm going to indicate the little hands here in a sec, but I think I'm going to shorten up the legs a bit. Squart them up a touch. Because it's just really funny. It's just a really funny looking creature. So we'd probably go like this. Then we'll indicate the slope of the back here. And we'll have another leg back here doing its thing. Maybe even based on the angle, move the head just a bit this way. Yeah, I would say so. So then they got, I'm going to make them sort of pigeon-toed. Because they got like little hand feet. With the thumb. With the little thumb. Pigeon-toed with hand feet. That's a real special look. Okay, and then maybe I would even take the legs out a bit like this to indicate this shape here that I'm seeing. They gotta look like, how dare you come to my birthday party, but you didn't even bring a present? I invited you, but you didn't even bring a present? I'd probably add some hair up here too. Some hair mountains. That's looking pretty good. Then another place you can always indicate hair is like I like to do it at sort of the curving point of something. So like on this sort of elbow area, you can add like a couple of these. It's just a good place to indicate fur. Just always seems to work when you do it here. And then like at the peak of something, so like up here. Again, it's like at the peak of a curve is a great place to put some hair. Oh, the ears do have brushes on them. I wasn't even seeing that properly. You're so right. They're like this. That's awesome. That's awesome. Good for them. And so there's like a light part, and then the dark extensions. They're like eyelash extensions, but for your ears. Is kind of what I'm getting from it. I probably got to get a move on, huh? Make this one a bit longer. That's definitely an exaggeratable point. Yeah, that'll be good. Oh my god, what a little demon. What a little devil demon. Okay, we got to get the thick tail in there. That's like paramount. Suppose we should also get like a back foot, maybe. And an indication of like the belly zone. And then I think I'm going to go tail up. Thick tail. That kind of does one of these numbers. Curly cues. Now that's a creature right there. I left my mailbox on the same layer. That's fine, who cares? That's a creature. So hopefully my points about simplification with regards to checking basic shapes, checking the ratio of features to each other, and then exaggerating those existing ratios. Hopefully that makes sense, because it's kind of something you can apply to anything you look at if you want to simplify it and sort of make your own take on it. But the ratio thing is like extremely important, because the ratios are what make something identifiable as itself. And if you have the ratios wrong, then it's not going to look like the thing it's supposed to look like. So that's something to look into next time you're doing this. Thank you for the reference. Let's do... Oh, I'm seeing some other people's art here. I'm seeing Nobody Nemo's hair studies. I'm seeing Xandrubert's hair studies. I'm seeing bugs. I'm seeing hair. These look awesome. Y'all are doing a great job. Okay, Nemo, you submitted a second piece of reference. I'm going to skip that for now because I might not have time. And I'm going to do So Eepees and Bloodbender 64s first, and then if we have time, we'll circle back to your other one, if that's cool. So let's take a look at So Eepees here. They said, hope I'm not too late, and sorry if these refs are bad, but I always want to know how to learn, always wanted to know / learn / study how to render the material that Tiffany wears in her first scene in Bride of Chucky. Absolutely. You got a couple good reference pieces here. This is once again a going to be a shiny fabric study. So cool. So sick. And this will be kind of an easy one to get to the bottom of because it's very just stark light and shadow. It's a super shiny material in a dark room with intense highlights. It looks like it is made of like latex or something of that nature. So one thing we can do that will take like no time at all is we're gonna get this like body shape here. I want the shape of the dress. Just want this. Whoops, 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 whoops. I just want to move it. There we go. We got it. We're fine. Nobody panic. And we're going to fill this with essentially black. Because most of this is just black. When you got a material like this, it's going to be either very dark or very light, and there's not going to be a lot of in-between gradations because the light just reflects fully off the material. And so what you want to focus on is, if we look at this reference here, we want to focus on the shape of the form itself, this sort of cylindrical hourglass figure. And the light is going to follow that shape where it hits. So where these highlights are hitting is following the shape of her body and the shape of the dress. So we got one shape that's like this big sort of extended curvy rectangle. And then the rest of it is just made up by the stretching of the fabric. So we have a lot of horizontal movement here in the pattern. So what we can do is we can, this is basically just pure white. We can make this rectangle shape that follows the pattern here of the dress. Kind of like this. We can fill that in. That gets us already part of the way there. And then what we can do is just erase out some of these, or even lasso out might even work well. Some of these other shapes that we're seeing that give it this like horizontal movement. And so I'd go through and just try to find some of like the big ones and really focus on these shapes that highlight the form here, which is like a cylindrical, the cylindrical form of the body. And then you can also just like, whoops. You can also just use like the eraser tool to erase some of it out to get more organic shapes like this. And so in doing this, you can get like the gist of it already pretty close. And we're just going to kind of move fast here for the sake of time. So now we've got sort of this these blocks of light and shadow to work with. And what we can add to that is a couple of things. We look for edges here where the shadow, where the highlight tapers off instead of having a hard edge. We can sort of take a soft eraser brush and we can make some of the spots fade out a bit more gradually in the parts where it does that. You can even add like a you could also use here like the blur tool. The blur tool my blur tool is not working like I want it to work. There we go. That's better. You can use the blur tool to soften some of the edges as well when you see them like being softer. And you can just kind of go in and apply this to all the different areas of the dress. The other thing that they kind of have is this like little bit of glow to them. So what I would probably do to really sell the fact that it's like light hitting the thing, blur this a little bit too here, is I would go in on another layer. You can do like a add glow layer. And you can just get a soft round brush. And you can just add a little bit of the glow. Might even work better on a normal layer here for this. So you can find like around the edges, if you add some of this, it will make it look like more like light that is hitting something. Gives it that effect of like light is bouncing off this object. You could even apply like a, this is going to be too much, but then I'm going to tone it down. Just give it a little bit. Just give it a little bit. And then when you zoom back out here, you know, it starts to really look like latex fabric. So mainly just focus on these big highlight shapes. Like here we've got like this shape here. And then just add the pure white highlight to the areas that the light would be hitting first and leave everything else very dark. That's going to be your move for rendering this type of material. Hopefully that is helpful. And now let's take a look at Bloodbenders here. Bloodbender sent musicians. Said a lot of the inspiring candids that I find tend to be cropped, so I was wondering if we could practice inferring / imagining the rest of the pose along with the object interaction that comes with the subject matter. Yeah, we could do that. You've got a great Hendrix pose here that we can take a look at. So when it comes to, we're going to do just like a quick and dirty pose here. When it comes to inferring the rest of a pose, first of all, I'm going to do it out to the side, but I'll actually do it on top to show you. First thing as usual is I'm looking for shapes. So I'm seeing the torso is like this kind of shape. You want to focus on the shoulder that's up and make sure that is like well indicated in your drawing, because that's going to kind of guide the placement of everything else. And here, head, it goes out this way. And here. So we know one shoulder's up here, the other shoulder's down here, which means the hips are going to be doing a similar thing. One is there, one is here. I usually like to indicate like this sort of underwear line I find is really helpful for seeing where things are. So then I drew it on the thing. I drew it on the thing. No, God, why? They're calling him the dumbest person who ever lived. Try again. We can do it twice. Who says we can't do it twice? Shoulder, arm, arm, hand. Torso's like this. Another shoulder here. Hand, arm. Head goes up here. Neck. Then we do the booty. We make the underwear. And we got some legs coming down here. There we go. So the thing you want to do if you're inferring the rest of a pose is you want to focus on the balance of the figure. So we got like the guitar here. We got the Hendrix hair up here. So for instance, if the upper body is going this way, then there's no way he's going to be able to stand up unless his legs are going back this way at some point. So it's like you got to focus on what would balance this position to make it possible for him to be standing. And you can just like try stuff too. So like if I did his legs going like this forward, he's going to be falling over. He's going to fall backwards this way. So it's like, okay, let's try something else. There's a couple ways we could go about making this happen. We could take the leg back this way. To sort of ground his stance. And then this leg could still be going, forward. That's possible. We could also have this leg be going even further back. Maybe we ground this foot a little more aggressively. And then this leg is going even further behind. I think that looks even more likely to me. So it's stuff like this you can try until something looks right, until it looks like this dude's not going to fall over. if I stood him like this. So think about pose balance. Think about the angle up top, the angle up bottom. They got to balance each other out. If the person is straight up and down up top, they can be straight up and down on bottom. But if there's any angle like this, it's got to be counterbalanced in order for the person to be sort of anchored to the ground. We can look at another one real quick because we got a couple minutes left. This is going to be a similar situation here. Got this violin player, or is it a fiddle player in this instance? I actually don't know who this is. But we'll do this one without drawing on top of it. So we got a shoulder angle like this. Body's leaning this way. Head is like this. Hand here. We got the fiddle. The fiddle's a fiddlin'. Hair. Not important for this, but you know. So this arm is implied to be, with an arm, it can only go one way, so you can sort of just, it won't bend unless it's at the elbow. So if it's going out in one direction, it's got to keep going in that direction. And then her body's going out this way as well. Then we got the hand. Sort of a foreshortened arm here. Coming down. Overalls. Collar. Okay, so if this is, and there's the bow, of course. Going off that direction. So this photo looks like it was likely taken at an angle because of the angle of this. So if we were to, whoops, if we were to, I did it on the same layer again, doing a really good job, being very smart and cool. If we were to rotate it so that that is vertical, then she's likely standing pretty upright. If we take it at face value, though, then once again, we would have to counterbalance the pose. So if it's going down like this, we need to correct back the other way. So I would probably have like one leg going out this way and then one leg kicking back. I got to make it even smaller. So if it's like this. You could have one going forward and one that's going back to counterbalance the weight. Something like this would work. You could also do, just move these to the side here. I mean, that's probably what my eyes would mostly see at this angle of the body. But you could do something like turn the torso a little bit more. And have like a stance like this. Wider stance out like this way. So mostly you just want to like try stuff until it looks like the character could stand without falling over. That's your main priority of your task. Is don't have your character fall over because gravity is not applying appropriately to them. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for that. I hope that is helpful. It's 5 o'clock now, so I think we're gonna have to not go back to your other submission, Nemo. So I apologize for that. But thank you all for submitting very much. This was a great time. I hope this was helpful. I'm seeing Reiko in the chat. You've done a phenomenal job doing the latex rendering there. I really like, let me showcase this actually. You've added the sort of blue, the blue soft brush halo. Really sells the effect. It really sells the effect. The blue. It's similar to kind of what I was getting at with my white halo, but the blue really kind of sells the dark blackness of the fabric. I think it actually looks even better. I think it looks quite nice. Use color dodge to color the blurred edges. Yeah. I think that's a great touch. I love that idea. But that's going to be it for this class. Once again, starting next month, we're going to have the $25 patrons in here as well to watch the course. And then people at the $50 tier will be able to submit art for critique. Because we are going to be doing art critique next month, and it will be 2 of us doing it. Nathan will be here, I think, for every one of them, unless he's gone. And then I think it's going to be Julia and Nathan doing the critique next month. But it will always be 2 of us going forward on the art critiques. And I'm really excited to do more of those because they're a great time, and it's really fun to look at y'all's artwork. But that's it for this class. Thank you for your support. Appreciate you all very much. And we'll see you hopefully on the Trans Rig stream tomorrow. It's going to be a blast. Hope to see you there. Goodbye, everybody.